Shortly after midnight, on May the 14th of 2008, Brendan Swanson, born January 30th of 1989, of Marshall, Minnesota, United States, drove his car into a ditch on his way home from celebrating the end of the spring semester with fellow students from Minnesota West Community and Technical College's Canby campus. Uninjured, he got out and called his parents on the phone, unsure of his exact location. He told them that he was near Lynd and they drove out to pick him up. However, they were unable to locate him. Swanson remained on the phone with them until he went silent 47 minutes later after exclaiming, "Oh shit." He has not been seen or heard from since. In the morning, Swanson's parents reported him missing to the police, who advised them to wait as such behavior was not uncommon for young men his age. Later that day, the circumstances of his disappearance became more complicated when his cell phone records showed that he had neared the Porters 25 miles, 40 kilometers from where Swanson had said he was, in different direction. The information led to the discovery of his car. It is not known whether Swanson was aware of his discrepancy when he talked to his parents. Foul play has not been ruled out, but it has also been proposed that he might have accidentally fallen into the Yellow Medicine River near where his car was found and drowned. Although extensive searches has not found a body, land searches with dogs have continued in the area for several years. His parents successfully lobbied the state legislature to pass Brendan's law, which requires that police begin investigation of missing adults promptly. Now to the background of the story. A native of Marshall in southwestern Minnesota, Swanson graduated from Marshall High School in 2007. He then chose to study wind turbine for a year at the Minnesota West Community and Technical College campus in Canby. Classes at Minnesota West ended for the academic year on the 13th of May 2008. Swanson stayed in Canby for the evening to celebrate with friends. At two different parties, he was witnessed drinking alcohol, but his friends said not enough to make him visibly intoxicated. Now to the disappearance. Swanson left Canby for the 30 miles, 48 kilometer drive home before midnight. Just before 2 a.m., he called his parents on his cell phone, telling them he had driven his car off the road into the ditch from which he could not remove the car. He was not hurt and asked them to come to where he was and pick him up. Annette and Brian Swanson got into their pickup truck and drove out to where they thought he was, keeping them on the cell phone despite occasional hang-ups and drops. Swanson stayed with his car and tried to signal them by flashing his lights on and off, but they saw nothing, nor did he see them do the same. Brendan finally gave up and told them that he was leaving the car to walk towards lights that he could see that led them to believe he was near Lynd, a small town roughly 7 miles, 11 kilometers southwest of Marshall. He told his father to head for the parking lot of a local bar and wait for him there. Brian began driving there, talking to his son as he did. Shortly after 2:30 a.m., 47 minutes into the call, Brendan suddenly interrupted himself on the phone and said, "Oh shit." He was silent for the remainder of the call until his parents hung up and made multiple attempts to call him back. Swanson has never been seen or heard from since then. Now to the investigation. After 6:30 a.m., his parents reported Brendan missing to the Lynd police. They were told that at first, it was hardly unusual for young men that age to stay out all night after the last day of college classes. Annette Swanson specifically recalled that one of the officers said it was Brendan's right to be missing. Later that morning, the Lynd police did a search but found no trace of Brendan in the town or outside. They requested that the officer of the Lynd County Sheriff Joel assist them. To better focus the search, the sheriff's office obtained Brendan's cell phone records, which revealed that Brendan had been calling from the vicinity of Taunton along State Highway 68, the main route to Canby, northwest of Marshall, 25 miles, 40 kilometers from Lynd. Searching in that area, deputies discovered Brendan's abandoned car in a ditch off a gravel road along the Lincoln County line. bringing the office of Valter County's Sheriff Jack into the investigation as well. He told the media that the car had gotten lunged up on the top of an incline at the edge of the road, not seriously enough to damage the car, but enough to keep the wheels from touching the ground on that side. There was nothing else found amiss with the car, and due to the grass and gravy in the area surrounding it, there were no track and thus no way to tell what direction Brendan had started walking. His cell phone calls have been routed through a tower at the intersection of the county routes 3 and 10 near Minnesota. Another 2 along Highway 68. By May the 15th, the call had been determined to have come from within 5 miles, 8.0 kilometers of the tower. Searchers were concentrating their efforts there since part of the circle include Yellow Medicine County to the north. Authorities from that jurisdiction also took part. One of the sheriff noted that the area, a red light atop a tuition grain elevator, could be seen. He thought it was possible that the red light Brendan had seen led to believe Lynd was within walking distance. Ground search were able to complement with the flyover by an area team. Search dogs were also brought in from the twin towns. A team of bloodhoods from the nearby county, South Dakota, picked up a 3-mile, 4.8 kilometer scent trail that largely followed the field road west-northwest to an abandoned farm, then along the Yellow Medicine River to a point where it disappeared to enter the stream. Brendan had abandoned the passing fence and hearing neither water. His father recalled, on the theory that Brendan might have drowned, boats from the state's Department of Natural Resources were deployed along the river and gates were installed. In some areas in Lincoln County, the water had been 10 feet, 3.8 miles deep on the morning of the disappearance, but has gone down since then, one of the deputies noted. Deputies also walked the river's bank and horses, all training vehicles were deployed in the surrounding area. However, the sheriff ruled out a more organized, extensive ground search. After the original search found no signs of Swanson, most efforts were discontinued. Sheriff Jack continued to walk the 2 miles, 3.2 kilometers of the Yellow Medicine in the area every day for 30 days. The Swansons left their porch light on all night every night as a symbol of their hope that Brendan could eventually return or be found and still do. Searches resumed later that fall after field planted shortly after the disappearance. He had been harvested. Dogs on those search continued to follow scents of human remains in an area of northwest of Porter that had not been searched earlier. Efforts picked up again in the spring after snow melted but before planting, a cycle that continued through 2011. By that time, 122 square miles, 320 kilometers had been searched. In 2010, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension took over as lead agency on the case. It set up a tip line. By 2015, 90 leads had been reported that way. By that point, when official search resumed, the area of interest had moved towards Moore Creek, a tributary of the Yellow Medicine north and northwest of Porter. Now to the theories. The theories of Swanson. While the trail followed by one of the dogs went to the Yellow Medicine, and despite her son's last known words, Annetta Swanson does not think he drowned there. After following the scent to the water, that dog continued up across the other side, along that river bank to another gravy road where it continued north towards the Yellow Medicine County line and ended. There really is nothing to indicate that he is in the river, she told CNN. Brian Swanson also recalled that any alcohol his son had consumed earlier in the evening, notwithstanding he did not seem disoriented or confused during their phone conversation. If Swanson is still alive, there are other possibilities, although they appear remote. He could have intentionally disappeared, but his parents did not believe he would have done that. The sheriff said that he could not rule out a foul play even though there was no evidence of it. Someone could have been in the shadows and they got him that way, he speculated. Now to the Brendan's law. After the search, Annette Swanson was still struck by the initial response of the Lynd police after her son had a right to be missing when she told them now how old he was. "I'm his mother and I knew something was horribly wrong," she recalled later. She and Brian began lobbying for change in state law that would require an investigation into the case of a missing adult to begin as soon as it reported, much as we already required in case of possible abducted children. Annette met with Marty, minority leader of the State House of Representatives at the time, whose district included Marshall, in a local restaurant. The two talked about the problems she had experienced with the police when she reported her son missing. She knew it wouldn't help her son's case, but that it could help others in the future, the representative recalled in 2015. Marty introduced a bill called Brendan's Law that would make the required change by amending the law governing the state's existing missing child program to change the word child to person. He recalled considerable resistance at first from the state law enforcement community as it was developed in committee. Part of it had to do with privacy, especially regarding cell phones. He told the Marshall Independent technology was emerging then, so there were discussions about privacy and when can they pin you and when can they not. Dennis Fredrickson introduced a companion bill in the state Senate. After it passed both houses, the House unanimously in May of 2019, Governor Tim signed into law with the Swansons and their daughter, Jamie, in attendance at the ceremony. The effort of the change also required the police, in addition to determining in their preliminary investigation that a reported person is still indeed missing, determine whether that person is potentially in dangerous circumstances. They must also notify other nearby law enforcement agencies promptly. Brendan's Law also clarifies that the agency taking the report is the lead agency investigating the case. The absence of that distinction had created some problem in the later phases of the initial search, where 3 different counties were involved. Police were no longer allowed to refuse a report based on initial belief that no criminal activities was involved, the brevity of the interval since the person was last seen, the possibility that the person may have intentionally disappeared, or the lack of a relationship between the missing person and the reporter. Following the governor's signature, the law took effect at the beginning of July of 2009. 4 other states have also passed similar laws. Marty left the legislature in 2010, but he still has the pen used to sign the bill into law. I consider it one of the most important bills I authored in my 14 years. It will save lives.